Hey everybody. I was sitting here working on my weekly Bible study for the group at church. It's been great uh, getting back to the real me. Um, I've finally gotten some feedback in on my other series about dealing with depression, and um, some people have expressed an interest in figuring out how I did what I did, how I went from where I was to where I am. Um, there's no shortcuts. You got to do the work. Um, it's hard. It's not easy, but it's definitely worth it. Um, it's a very freeing, liberating feeling. And I'm still, I've been doing this for a couple weeks now, and I'm still getting used to and still learning um, different changes that have happened from the process that I took. But anyway, I'm talking end results, and you're just getting started. So, um, I developed this process because the first thing you got to do is take the mask off. And sometimes we've been wearing the mask for so long, we don't know, what's the mask and what's our real face. I have been institutionalized 3 times now in my life, um, in various ways for various reasons. But every time I do this process, this is how this started, because I wanted to, make things different. And it's funny because I started it without even realizing what I was doing. And then when I realized what I was doing, um, it started happening a lot faster. So hopefully I can save you some time. The first time I did it, it took months. Um, I got it to a point where I can do this in days. Um, that's how many times I've repeated the process. Like it's that natural now. Um, Anywho, step one: get yourself a journal. Um, Even if you are not very big into writing, it's okay. Um, what you're gonna do is once you have your journal, anytime you are in a strong emotional state, okay, that's the only prerequisite. That can be a strong state of anger, of sadness, of joy, of even peace. Any time that you become aware that you are in an emotionally driven, or a centered state, I want you to take note of it. And it doesn't have to be some sprawling epic, but it has to be raw, real, and honest. And I'm going to say this: if you cannot trust your surroundings, to record it in a journal, figure out a code. If you're more artistic than written word, maybe make doodles that you can code, because it has to be something that can trigger the memory in you of that moment and that feeling. That's the point. That's why you're recording it. And you're going to record like this for, I'm trying to remember back, and I think the first time I did it for probably a good 2 weeks where I just recorded. That's it. Every once in a while, I would flip back and kind of go through, but I didn't really dive too deep. And what I was doing was I was teaching myself the habit. I knew that I was keeping this journal, so it was making me be more aware of when I entered that state. And for me, it was a lot of anger. That was my main issue that I wanted to work on at the time. So that was my big focus. I made it very easy to, notice that. So that's what you're doing in this process is you're teaching yourself good habits, to stop and reflect and be aware that you are in this emotional driven state. After a couple weeks of recording, you start to go back and genuinely, like, deep dive, go back and look at it, because now some time has passed. And you get to look back and be like, do I even still remember that moment? Or do I need this recording to remind me that it happened? Do I still feel the way I did then about it? Or do I feel differently now that time has passed? These are things that you start asking yourself and you start being aware of. Again, you are literally in this process waking yourself up. You are raising your own awareness. That is the point of this process. Even if you already think you're pretty self-aware, do the exercises, because even when you have the muscle, it helps to give it some exercise, You always want to try and be in this elevated state of awareness. Like, for me, it is an almost constant thing now. Every once in a while, I'll slip back and I'll catch myself in that, program state. But I usually catch it pretty quick now. The other thing that you are doing in this process is, now that time has passed from that incident, can you look at it differently and find a different alternative to what you were thinking at that time? That's a measurement of your own growth, because you want to reflect on these things. Again, even the good times, even when you're really joyful, not to diminish that, but that alters perceptions too. And that's the point. You're trying to become your own lie detector, is what you're training yourself to do. You're looking for your own triggers. You're looking for a pattern. If you notice that every time a certain circumstance occurs, you have a very specific emotional reaction, that's a trigger. And that's you're learning about yourself, so you can catch that, be aware of it, and then if it's because there are such things as good triggers. Some triggers are there for a reason. They're like a protective barrier for yourself. So you have to really analyze and see, like, hey, is this a trigger that I want to exist? Or is this something, because again, when you're triggered, what it triggers is autopilot. So you are automatically going to respond a certain way every time you are triggered. That's how it works. There's a lot I want to talk about, but we're not ready for that discussion yet. But suffice it to say, you see it a lot in advertising, a lot in politics. A lot of people use these triggers to get people to buy, act, or do certain, vote certain ways. And we'll leave it at that. And as you get a more heightened awareness of this, you'll see it. But just trust the process. Don't give up. Sometimes it'll get frustrating. At the same time, once you start to peel back these triggers, right? These triggers are barriers, because they make you go in autopilot so you don't think. The problem is, you always want to be in control. You always want to be in that thought process so you can react appropriately. Some people will say that it's good to react a certain way every time something happens. And there is one thing I can tell you in this world is there is no one constant, one-size-fits-all truth. There are individual pieces that are solid truth, that are, irrefutable, yes. But there is no one blanket umbrella that covers. It doesn't exist. It doesn't. That's the wonder of life. That's our uniqueness. That's our humanity. But that's, again, this is that process. Self is awareness, ego is expression. You want the awareness, you want to be in control of the expression. That's what we're doing here. This is what helps you get centered. Now, while you're finding your triggers and teaching yourself good habits, is a good time to start breaking apart your belief systems. And I don't just mean like faith and religion and things like that. I mean everything, like your politics, your views on education, your views on people in general in the world, everything. You want to start picking that apart, because now that you're starting to develop this self-awareness, you're exercising this muscle, and you're starting to get this clarity, you're going to find out that some things that you have been believing and treating as truth have been bullshit. It's been there to sell you shit, basically. And it stuck. And you took it as truth when it wasn't. The only reason it's truth is because you made it truth. And you need to take your power back and get rid of that. Once you have that awareness, once you can see it, you can kind of reprogram yourself. Awareness is probably the most difficult part of all this, is to get the awareness. But once you have it, it doesn't automatically change things. Again, we have habits. We have to develop proper habits. And that's what this process is. Again, the work doesn't work if you don't work it. I would also strongly suggest that once you have dissected your belief systems, start looking for the one that fits. For me, it's Christianity. There's a lot of wisdom in the Bible. A lot of this process is wisdom and knowledge that I've translated from the Bible. Like, it's an awesome self-help book, like I'm telling you. But again, I had the ability to translate it. I'm not trying to push religion on anybody. I'm not trying to tell you you have to believe anything. I'm just telling you my experience. And also me personally now, talking just for myself. I've always been, like, I was raised in the church, but the church that I first went to wasn't... It was a transitioning church. It was going from old ways into new ways, as it should. Because faith should grow, and, we're meant to change. God doesn't change, we do. Or at least, anyway. Not trying to put the cart before the horse. But you want to find, and you'll hear a lot of people give you flat. Like, I highly suggest just the regular Christian Bible, the full thing. Some people will tell you, you do got to be careful, especially if you are in a certain dark head space. You got to be very careful about going into the Old Testament. But that's where a lot of the good stuff is too. Like, especially, like, for me, the story of Elijah, it starts in Kings, and it's like this whole epic that goes through a few books. Like, he first appears in Kings, and he's mentioned all the way at the end. Like, he's around, and Elijah is mentioned in the New Testament. Like, he appears next to Jesus. So it's a really cool story, and he starts in a depressed state. Like that's where we find him. Like he's just wasting away. Um, it's a very helpful story. Another good one is The Thorn in the Flesh. That one opened up a lot of things for me too. But I've kind of mentioned that in the past, and I'll dive into that more in the future. But right now, that's not. A lot of people give you flack about what version of the Bible you choose. Yes, it is important because in the end game, certain messages come through in certain versions and they don't. But you also have to be willing to explore. I have a copy of several, like almost every version there is of the Bible, so I can compare passages and see how some Bibles express certain principles better than others. For me, it's my understanding. But again, I wrote about this not long ago. Another thing with the Bible is I know a lot of people are walking into that with you, let go of your preconceptions. Let go. Just go blank slate. Think of this is a self-help book. I'm in here for wisdom. These stories, they're not it's not a rule book, it's a guidebook. That's how you have to approach it in this process. All right? These are suggestions. These are, hey, and you want to start like thinking deeper on this. Like when I started, I was viewed as pretty much the village idiot. That's kind of still like the general misconception with me. In this process, you're gonna find your depth, and I ended up being pretty deep. Um, but I wasn't always this way. I used this process to again increase my self awareness, so I knew what to change and how to change it. I used this as my standard because I recognize the wisdom there, and that's what I wanted to be. I make this joke at my Bible study group. I don't claim to be as wise as Solomon, but that's what I asked for, so that's what I strive for. And I say that jokingly, but that's actually not a joke. Like, that's, one of the things I prayed to God for is, give me the wisdom to navigate and get through things. And that's what I prayed for, and that's what I work for, and that's I wouldn't say I've 100% achieved it. I think it's an ongoing process. I don't think it ever ends, but I think I've achieved it enough that I can call it a success. I just have to stay in it is the trick. You got to keep on it. This is not one of those, it's just a hobby. I do this from time to time. No, if you are serious about improving yourself and unlocking your full potential, then it's a forever thing. You gotta now. The great news is even though it might seem difficult and sluggish now, again, I'm like a phoenix. I have risen from the ashes so many times doing this. Boom, boom, boom. Last time I had to like I was an utter wreck, like mess, completely destroyed. Took me 3 days to rise from the ashes. That's how long it took to go in and fix everything. So, I one of the earlier in my journey of this, I did write this process out, and I posted it publicly. I made it available. It's free. It's I don't want your money. I don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm poor. I could use money. It would help, but that's not why I do this. I do this to help. I understand like people got bills to pay and mouths to feed, but it really irks me when people, come up and advertise like, hey, I can fix all your problems if you pay me this much a month and I'll show you everything you need to know. No, I want a better world for everybody. All right. And that shit should be free. I'm sorry. That's my view. I don't, again, I don't knock you. I understand that you got, responsibilities, and hey, I'm big on that too. But you can't put a price tag on it. It's necessity. It's survival. So, again, by this process, I can very solidly say I am who I say I am. Like, I know for certain. Like, there's not a question in here. None of this is programming, aside from my own programming. Anyway, this is already a little longer than I had originally intended, but it's a solid start. So, no set schedule. I'm going to pop on and off and guide you through this process here. I'm going to try and put a link in the description down below to the text version that I was just talking about, where I tried to write it out. I'm also slowly working on an updated version of that, but don't hang on it. It probably won't see the light of day because I've got so much. It's such a continuing process that I'm just never going to catch up to where I'm at. It's well, not to limit myself, but just I don't see it in the near future. Okay. But I am going to work on it. I think that's part of what this is. It's more of a better way to update. So, like I said, there'll be, if you don't mind doing it, because it is a lot of reading. And again, I've refined it quite a bit since I wrote that. But it's down there. Check it out. I will also try to put a link again. I'm not very good at this, but I'm trying. I will also try to put a link to it's openbible.info, I believe. That's where I go if you are new and you don't know, or if you don't trust your past experiences with the Bible. That is a great resource if you want to look up a specific topic and see what the Bible has to say about that specific topic. I highly recommend that. Again, get a version of the Bible that you are comfortable with reading. For right now, you want to get comfortable. Before this is all over, you will have a specific where you say, like, this is the one I read for you. But in the beginning, just find the one that you can understand enough that you can pluck out the pearls of wisdom. Is the basic idea. All right. So, again, the first time I did this, just that part that I just described in the last 20 some minutes took me weeks, if not the first month or two, to get established. So, this should be enough to get you started. Feel free to reach out. I'm definitely down to help anybody that I can. But I will say I've been done dirty a few times. If you're in it for real, I will never turn you away. But if you are looking for shortcuts, if you're trying not to do the work, I'm sorry. I'm trying to help too many people. I can't waste my time. That's just the truth of the matter. And that's how it stands. All right, so good luck. I'll see you again soon. Take care of each other and do the work.